Washington, D.C., May 22, 2025. The auditorium at the Global Democracy Human Rights Forum 2025 was filled with the world's sharpest minds, cameras, and calm tension. A rich, elegant silence hovered after Justice Samuel Alito delivered his keynote. Alito had just stunned the room. With cold precision, he defended a new U.S. ruling. All international NGOs operating in foreign democracies must first seek approval from the United States to ensure they align with global democratic interests. Many nodded in quiet agreement. Others shifted in discomfort. But no one spoke. Not yet. Until Ibrahim Traoré stood. Wearing a plain suit without a tie, the young African president walked slowly to the stage, each step echoing. Cameras turned, eyes widened. Alito glanced at him, uninterested. Then Traoré spoke. "Your Honor, what you just said, that is not democracy. That is a modern form of colonial veto." Gasps cracked across the hall like glass shattering. Alito's head snapped toward Traoré, his brows furrowed. Traoré continued, voice calm yet fierce. No justice system should decide the fate of sovereign nations halfway across the world. And just like that, the room exploded. Justice Alito stood mid-panel, trembling with restrained fury. "Outrageous," he barked. "This is a smear. I won't be lectured by a president who—" He paused. The crowd leaned in. Traoré stepped forward again, eyes locked on Alito's. "Say it," he said softly. "Say what you were about to say." Alito, red-faced, bit his tongue. The air thickened. But Traoré didn't stop. "Do we ask for permission when the Red Cross enters a war zone? Did African doctors need U.S. approval to help during Ebola? Or are approvals only required when Africans want to help Africans?" A young African student in the back began to cry. One woman in the audience whispered, This is history." By now, journalists were live tweeting, and cameras focused entirely on the two men. Across the world, screens flickered on. Alito clenched the table. "We're talking about protecting democracy," he spat. Traoré raised a single hand. "Democracy cannot be protected by control. It is nourished by trust, respect." Someone stood and clapped, then another. Soon, a wave of applause rolled through, half cheers, half confusion. But beneath it all, something deeper was stirring. The world was listening. That night, the video exploded online. African president confronts U.S. Supreme Court judge on global stage, trended in 37 countries within 6 hours. CNN ran the clip back to back. TikTok clips showed Traoré's quote over slow violin music. Some praised him as a hero. Others accused him of arrogance. But far from the noise, in a small village near Bobo-Dioulasso, Burkina Faso, an old woman watched the replay on her cracked smartphone, her wrinkled hands shaking. She was Traoré's mother. She didn't understand much English, but she watched her son, her boy who once sold peanuts on the roadside, look into the eyes of a powerful judge and defend his continent. Tears ran down her cheeks. Later that night, she sent him a voice note in Dioula. "You didn't just speak for us. You reminded them that we are not their children. We are their equals. May God protect you, my son." Traoré sat in his hotel room, the city glowing beyond the glass. He played the message again and again. Outside, protesters and supporters both began gathering. The world was waking up, and Ibrahim Traoré had just become its alarm clock. The next morning, Ibrahim Traoré walked the hotel hallway alone, coffee in hand, wearing the same dark suit. An American diplomat approached him quickly, too quickly. "Mr. President," he said, half smiling, "some of us feel your speech was inflammatory. Maybe an apology would ease things." Traoré didn't flinch. "To whom? The judge who wants to control my people? Or the children who die every year because international aid comes with hidden strings?" The diplomat lowered his voice. You've made powerful people uncomfortable. Traoré stepped closer. Good. There was a pause. There are discussions to cut support to nations whose leaders interfere in U.S. foreign strategy. Traoré stared at him for a moment, then calmly replied, Maybe it's time we grow our own seeds, even if it means eating less for a while. That night, protesters filled the streets outside the forum. Some held signs that read, Let Africa breathe. Justice control. Traoré speaks for us. But inside, U.S. officials were already discussing ways to discredit him. And far away, in a dusty room in Ouagadougou, a small child whispered to his mother, When I grow up, I want to speak like him. The following afternoon, a staffer handed Traoré a sealed envelope. It had no return address, only the words, For President Ibrahim Traoré, please read. Inside was a handwritten letter. Mr. President, I'm a retired U.S. Marine. I served in West Africa in 2006. I watched your speech yesterday. I cried. I never cry. We were told we were there to help. But many times, I knew, deep inside, we were there to monitor, to manipulate. I didn't understand the harm then, but now I do. We wore flags. You wear truth. You didn't just speak for Africa. You reminded me what real courage looks like. God bless you. M. Andrews, Pennsylvania. Traoré read the letter twice. He pressed it to his chest. Outside, a storm was building. The forum's organizers announced a private meeting to address controversial remarks made during the keynote session. Translation. They wanted to silence him. But the world was watching. Millions were sharing hashtags. Kids in Ethiopia and Haiti were learning his name. Even some Westerners were questioning everything they'd believed. And Traoré, alone in his hotel room, finally allowed a single tear to fall. That night, Traoré's phone buzzed. Unknown number, American line. He hesitated, then answered. Mr. President, came the voice, calm and clear. This is Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. I watched your speech. Traoré said nothing. I may not agree with all your politics, but I agree with this. A real democracy doesn't fear a free voice. Traoré finally spoke. Why are you calling? Because voices like yours don't last long without support. I've seen what they do to those who speak truth. There was a pause. You may have just shifted the world's axis, Mr. Traoré, but you've also become a target. Traoré looked out the window, where protesters still sang in the cold. Then let them aim, he said. Good, because they already are. Kennedy ended the call with one last whisper. Be careful, they don't just silence people, they erase them. The line went dead. Traoré stood frozen, thinking not of himself, but of his people, his country, his mother, and the cost of speaking too loudly, in a world that prefers whispers. The forum organizers changed the venue for day 3 without announcement. No press allowed, no audience. They called it a dialogue behind closed doors. But when Traoré walked in, he knew what it really was, an ambush in a glass palace. The room shimmered with mirrors and chandeliers, but the reflections showed fear and politics. At the round table sat 12 world leaders. Alito wasn't present, but the room reeked of his influence. A European prime minister spoke first. President Traoré, your words. They ignite passion, yes, but also division. The world needs calm leadership now, not confrontation. Traoré leaned in. The world needs courage, not caution dressed as diplomacy. Another leader added, There are murmurs in Washington, sanctions, trade cuts. You should consider walking back some of your remarks. Traoré stood. He looked at the mirror behind them, saw his reflection beside theirs. You look into glass and see yourselves. I look into it, and I see the children of Djibo drinking dirty water while aid is delayed for approval. I see graves that don't speak English." The room fell silent. One diplomat, from Argentina, whispered, "I envy your honesty, but it may get you killed." That night, there were footsteps outside Traoré's hotel room. He heard them at exactly 2:13 a.m. Sharp, precise, paused. Then silence. He sat in the dark, wide awake, thinking about every leader who had once challenged global systems, and how they ended. Lumumba, Sankara, Gaddafi. He wasn't afraid, but he wasn't stupid. He sat at the desk and wrote a letter, by hand. "To my people. If you are reading this, it means they succeeded. But listen closely. Do not fight for me. Fight for your right to choose your own sky. I was just a voice. You are the echo. Build schools. Hold your leaders accountable. Help one another. And never let the world silence you again. Ibrahim Traoré." He sealed the envelope, kissed it once, and hid it behind the Gideon Bible in the desk drawer. Outside, the footsteps faded, but the fear remained, not for himself, but for what they might do to stop the fire he had lit. The next morning, he was scheduled to speak at a youth session of the forum. Security insisted on canceling the event. Traoré refused. The room was filled with teenagers from over 40 countries. Cameras were off. It wasn't part of the live stream. But then a girl, maybe 11, from South Sudan stood up, her hands shaking. She held a blue notebook. "Sir," she whispered, "I wrote this last night. I want to read it." The room hushed. "My name is Ayan. My village was burned when I was 6. I saw men with guns take my brother. I don't know if he's alive. I stopped talking for 2 years. But yesterday, I watched you on my cousin's phone. You talked like you weren't afraid of anybody. That made me write this." She opened her notebook. "You reminded me my voice isn't small. You made my heart say words again. Ibrahim, I don't know politics, but I know you made me believe something good can come, even for girls like me." Traoré's hands shook. He rose, walked over, and hugged her gently. And for the first time since the forum began, he cried. Later that afternoon, a private message arrived via encrypted line from a former UN special rapporteur. Traoré opened the message. It was one sentence. "They've begun the soft erasure. Watch your media." He turned on the hotel TV. CNN had already changed the headline. Traoré sparks diplomatic breakdown after forum outburst. Fox News, African president accused of anti-American rhetoric. A French outlet called him unstable. Even his Wikipedia page had been edited overnight, subtly, maliciously. Words like radical, confrontational, populist appeared. They were painting him as a threat. "They're not debating my message," he muttered. "They're deleting my credibility." His team begged him to return home, but Traoré shook his head. "This is no longer about one country. This is about who gets to write the script of what freedom looks like." He posted a video that evening, raw, unedited. "If I vanish, remember this. They can erase my name, but not the fire in your hearts." The video was viewed 18 million times in 6 hours. He didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. At 3 a.m., his phone rang again. It was a strange call, routed through 4 countries. The voice on the other end? "Mr. Traoré, this is Michelle Obama." He froze. "I'm not calling for politics. I'm calling as a black woman who knows what it means to be silenced. What you said shook people in ways you may never fully see." He was quiet. "Do you know what it cost my husband every time he told the truth?" she asked softly. "They don't mind us in photos. They mind us when we speak." Then she added something that chilled him. "I heard they've greenlit a disinformation campaign. It starts tomorrow. You'll be called corrupt, violent, unstable, even in your own country." Traoré clenched his jaw. Let them. No, Michelle said. You don't fight lies with silence. You fight them with witnesses. Let the world see you, raw, unfiltered. Do not retreat. She hung up, and for the first time in 2 days, he smiled, not in arrogance, but in clarity. They were scared. That meant he was right. By dawn, the smear machine exploded. Fake bank documents were leaked. A forged photo of Traoré with a known arms dealer began trending. A BBC analyst asked, "Is Traoré a new strongman hiding behind anti-Western rhetoric?" Traoré didn't flinch. He went live again, holding up Ayen's blue notebook. This is why they're attacking me. Because I reminded the forgotten that they matter. He didn't name names. He didn't insult anyone. He just told the truth. And truth has a power they didn't account for. That night, journalists from Mexico, Palestine, Kenya, and even Ohio began pushing back online. Why is Traoré being slandered for saying what we've all whispered? A viral video showed his speech next to clips of Lumumba's final address. The caption read, "Different decade, same courage." Meanwhile, Justice Alito was scheduled to speak again the next day, this time with full media protection. But there was a surprise. His own former law clerk resigned live on air, saying, "I believed in the Constitution, I still do. That's why I stand with Traoré." Justice Alito returned to the stage on day 4, under tight security. The venue was restructured. Audience questions were now pre-screened. Cameras were only allowed at one angle, and the moderator was a U.S. diplomat. But one thing hadn't changed. Traoré was seated directly across from him. The air was tense. Alito adjusted his notes and began. "Let us be clear. The Supreme Court does not act on colonial instinct. We act on national interest and constitutional interpretation." He paused. "I will not entertain lectures from heads of unstable regimes with poor human rights records." Gasps. Traoré didn't flinch. He looked straight into Alito's eyes. "And I will not entertain the silence of those who know better and choose comfort over truth." The moderator interrupted. "President Traoré, this panel—" "Let him speak," said a woman's voice in the front row. It was the South Korean ambassador's wife. "Some of us are tired of history repeating in slow motion." The room froze. For the first time, Alito looked rattled. Outside the venue, the streets of Geneva were flooded. Not with protesters, with teachers, students, midwives, refugees, artists. Signs read, "You cannot veto our future. Traoré speaks, we listen. No more colonial courts." A young journalist live-streamed it with tears in her voice. "This doesn't feel like a protest. It feels like a funeral for silence." Inside, things escalated. A representative from Brazil asked a pointed question. "Justice Alito, if your ruling truly respects sovereignty, then why does it force smaller nations to seek U.S. approval to help their own people?" Alito snapped. "Because chaos must be regulated. Not all nations can self-govern responsibly." Dead silence. Traoré turned to the mic. "That belief, that sentence, is the very root of modern oppression." He then pulled something from his pocket. A photograph of his mother. "This woman walked 10 miles barefoot every week to bring food to my school. The world said she was powerless, but she raised a president." The room erupted in tears, not applause. Tears. Later that evening, an unscheduled speaker appeared during the closing cultural segment. She wasn't on the program, but when she stepped onto the stage, nobody stopped her. It was Ayen, the little girl with the blue notebook. She stood trembling. But this time she held a microphone, not just paper. She spoke softly. "You told me my voice wasn't small, so I'm here. To remind the world that voices like mine matter, even if if we're not rich, even if we're not white, even if we don't have microphones most days. The crowd was silent. Then she added, if grown-ups won't protect us, then we'll protect each other, with truth, and with hearts like President Traoré's. She handed the mic back and walked off. Traoré stood, his eyes wet. He whispered only 4 words to the world. You just heard tomorrow. And in that moment, nobody questioned who the real leader was anymore. Within 48 hours of Ayen's speech, something unexpected happened. The Global Democracy Human Rights Forum servers crashed. Too many people were trying to stream one moment. Traoré's confrontation, Ayen's words, the picture of Traoré's mother. The clip hit 100 million views. But it wasn't just views anymore. It was action. University students in Canada walked out of lectures holding signs that read, You just heard tomorrow. Nurses in Rwanda organized candlelight vigils. Children in Yemen uploaded drawings of Ayen, calling her their hero. A prison inmate in Georgia mailed a letter to a local paper. I've never cried in 22 years. I cried last night. And in Burkina Faso, a crowd formed at the presidential gates, but not in protest, in protection. Thousands came to stand watch over Traoré's family. A mother in the crowd said on camera, if they try to silence him, they will have to silence all of us first. The U.S. Department of State released a cold statement. President Traoré's conduct was deeply inappropriate and threatens diplomatic relations. But Traoré's reply wasn't political. He posted a 2-minute video. No background music, no suit, no grand room, just him, sitting under a tree. He looked tired, but grounded. When I spoke, I was not attacking a country. I was defending dignity. I was defending Ayen, and every child like her. If diplomacy means letting injustice stand to protect your seat at the table, then maybe the table needs to break. He smiled softly. Let history record this. I did not come to Geneva to be liked. I came to make sure the voiceless were heard. And with that, he signed off. Not as a president, but as a man. A human being who knew the cost of telling the truth. 2 weeks later, Ibrahim Traoré landed in Ouagadougou to a sea of 3 million people. It wasn't a rally. It was a homecoming. They chanted one phrase in unison. You just heard tomorrow. Old women knelt to bless him. Young men cried. Teachers held signs. This is the kind of leader we tell our children about. But it wasn't over. That night, Traoré surprised the world again. He stepped down temporarily from his position, not out of fear, but to create a free international truth commission made of youth, elders, and former enemies alike. A platform to monitor global interference and give every nation a voice. He called it the table without chains. And before logging off one last time, he said, Power is not what I hold. It's what you carry now. Don't let it die. His screen went dark. The comments exploded. The world cried. The end. But not the end of the mission. If this story touched your heart, made you cry, or gave you hope, subscribe right now, not just for stories, but for truth that dares to speak. Smash the like button if Ayen made you believe in tomorrow again. Comment with the words, I carry it now. Let's flood this channel with the legacy of dignity, courage, and light. Let the world know we heard tomorrow, and we're not staying silent.